Well, there's a lot of talk of Karens and Kens in the beef sector, and or Karens and Darrens, or Karens and Chads. I like Ken. That's my personal preference. Um, yeah. I mean, obviously, diversity is nice. I like diversity. I've been raised on diversity and I appreciate it a lot and stuff. Um, but it can have its issues. I mean, if you'd asked me as a kid whether I thought segregation was a good idea, I would have been like horrified. Um, but as I get older, I'm kind of like, it has its merits. Only because while integration is the goal, if people don't know how to act right, then, integration can be very damaging, not to the dominant race, obviously, but to the marginalized people. So sometimes being separate is better. If you're dealing with bullshit all the time, it's like, and even if they're not, yelling the N-word at you and burning crosses on your front yard, it's the microaggressions. It's a death by 1,000 cuts, which can be, when most people are executed, they want it to be done swiftly. But the death by 1,000 cuts is a slow torture until you die, possibly by your own hand, just to stop the pain. But anyway, that took a dark turn. So I like, diversity's nice and that's lovely. And when people can get along, that's lovely. I guess my feelings on Karens and Kens in the sector, and sorry, I'm sort of referring to everyone of the Caucasian persuasion as Karen and Ken. I don't necessarily mean that in a pejorative sense when I'm just sort of referring to everybody. It's just, it's like bitch, it can just be, a term of almost endearment or not. Anyway, so I mean, like most things, I think it's pretty simple. Just, treat people with respect and stuff. But that seems to be easier said than done. And I would also say my main feeling when it comes to Karens and Kens is just know that you are a guest in this house. You are the company. And you treat the place as such. You treat this place as if you were a guest and be on your best behavior. And, when you're a guest in someone's house, you don't take over and you don't act like you're the owner of the house. Your name's on the deed, because it sure isn't. And I think, there are plenty of people who fly under the radar and don't cause any issues, and they're probably following that rule. And then there are people who don't fly under the radar, who are definitely not following that rule. And there's this sort of feeling of, why are they here watching us fight with each other or even helping? It reminds me of, I don't know if anyone remembers that show. It was on like Univision called Christina. And it was that blonde lady, the talk show host. And it turns out she's Cuban. I don't know why I thought she was Colombian for some reason. But we used to watch it in my house all the time. And I didn't speak a lick of Spanish, didn't know what the hell was going on. But I knew what was going on when people started throwing their purses and chairs at each other. So we were very entertained. But I noticed, and I think we all noticed watching the show, that, why am I getting out of breath? Jeez. We noticed watching the show that, okay, so Christina is this Cuban woman, but looks white, basically. I mean, platinum blonde hair and stuff, very light skinned. If she's speaking English, you would assume she was from Oklahoma or something. And so she was, the host, the boss. And what we noticed was a lot of the fighting that happened on the show. If the show was especially ratchet, it was indigenous, darker skinned people who were in the middle of the drama. And we thought, that's kind of weird that they're getting all these, obviously anywhere where there's been colonialism, there's sort of a caste system. And the people with the deeper complexions tend to be at the bottom and have the disadvantages and stuff. And it was very strange to see the show hosted by this blonde, very white woman, and everyone's gathering around to watch the brown-skinned indigenous people, whooping it up. So there's this, there was an exploitative flavor to the show for sure. And so I think people are responding to that in the beef sector when they see these white people cheering on, there's a term I really don't want to use, but, they want to see us in the middle, fighting and making fools of ourselves and stuff like that. And, they're probably throwing a buck at us here and there. That's very off-putting, to say the least. And so when you see that, I can see why people are not terribly welcoming of Karens and Kens. Getting a kick out of us fighting each other. What's that about? That's it doesn't sit right with me, and it doesn't sit right with a lot of people, and I think for good reason. So, but I'm not saying everybody's like that. It's funny how when we were talking about, the majority, you always have to say, well, not everybody's like that. Whereas we're not always extended that same courtesy, but not everyone. # not all Karens. So yeah, I mean, really, it's just, be respectful and don't be weird. Don't be creepy and Django-y about it and stuff. But yeah, I don't know. I know people get a lot of amusement out of looking at Karen videos and stuff, and I find myself getting less and less amused by them. And I don't want to be that person that's like, it's not funny, you guys, because it is funny. It is funny to see someone act like a 2-year-old and totally like fall out and stuff in public. And that's exactly what it is. It's people regressing, people who are used to having their way and, having to retreat to their former, their toddlerhood in order to get their way. Because that's probably the last time someone said no to them. And it is funny, but I get very uncomfortable by that kind of Karen behavior. I always say, you can take the Karen out of the plantation, but you can't take the plantation out of Karen. And to see that kind of plantation behavior in our modern society is very upsetting to me. And, now we can point our camera at them and laugh and stuff, but I mean, 30 years ago, maybe 40 years ago, that kind of behavior would have gotten one of us killed. If not lynched or somehow mysteriously disappeared, then, sentenced to decades in prison. So I know I'm a Debbie Downer, but that stuff makes me really uncomfortable. And I don't know. Anyway, I went somewhere else with that, but needless to say, I'm not always very happy with Karens and so forth and Karen behavior.